Hey everyone, I'm Alex.
And I'm Jack.
And in today's video we'll be ranking the bosses of Mario Galaxy 2 from worst to best. It has been some time since we covered the first Mario Galaxy game, one of our favorites of all time. About a year and a half in fact. Our channel has changed much since then, seeing bounding increases in both quality and size, especially as of late. We've undergone somewhat of a new year, new channel initiative, heralding in a new era. We now have opened a Patreon account, obtained a more professional profile picture and banner, and plan many more changes such as the making of merchandise, revitalizing our Discord server, and gunning for early access to new games for better coverage of new releases. Please stay tuned for the future of Cytonox. In this vein, we'll be concluding our series on the Galaxy games with 2 videos on the second entry. Mario Galaxy 2 is generally considered one of the best sequels of all time, and most people are pretty split on whether it's superior to the original or not. I personally prefer Galaxy 1, but would go on the record as calling Galaxy 2 objectively the better game. I think I'm just weirdly disaffected by the dismal hub world, which is apparently not an opinion held by me alone. Today we'll be looking at the bosses, which consist of hordes of hostile aliens and Koopa Troop soldiers as is series standard. Let's get into it.
Admittedly, I'm still a fan of Sorbetti even with it being far and away the worst boss. However, in games like Mario Galaxy, least enjoyable just means least engaging. It'll still be fun, just not as fun as others due to it being short or not particularly creative. Sorbetti's a giant parasite-shaped snowball with a big red nose that you star spin, you guessed it, 3 times. No harm to him, he's just a very easy and forgettable boss.
This guy is a shameless callback to Dino Piranha, but instead of sending his elastic tail into his noggin at Mach speed, you just punch him in the ass until he blows up. If you look past the deceptively simple gameplay, there's a touching lesson in here about how people with outie belly buttons deserve to be beaten to death on sight. I may have learned to read from Galaxy 1, but I learned to punch random people on the playground from Galaxy 2. Ultimately, this fight is similar to Sorbetti, generic spin attack fodder who dies in mere seconds. It's a bit funnier that you hit him on the ass instead of the nose though, so he wins out.
If you had oversized bug with a ground pound weak spot on your bingo card, congratulations. Compared to, say, Bugaboom, at least Glamdozer has pretty interesting arena design. There are mesh spots that flip over when you ground pound them, and you then ground pound Glamdozer while under her. In her last phase, she can move along both sides of the planet and even spits out balls of lava that can melt onto grates and momentarily render them useless, although it's still a generally passive fight. Glamdozer is fun in the moment, but ultimately forgettable.
What's more fun than spinning people from behind? If you answered driving into them from behind at high speed concealed within a mass of boulders, you were correct. Rock Mario was a great addition to the game, adding almost Sonic Boost-like elements to some levels, and I thought that as far as applying boss fights go, this went okay. Would have been cooler and maybe a bit harder if you had to use ramps to land on top of him or something, but the power-up had only just been introduced at that point, so I guess anything too crazy would be unfair.
I like Prince Picante quite a bit actually. I'm a fan of the skating mechanic in the Galaxy games and of the Spanish-named octopus boss fights that accompany them. That said, skating does come with its challenges, namely movement control. Unlike His Majesty King Caliente, Prince Picante is presumably crippled and in a moving cart. He shoots out fireballs that create lava rings when they touch the ground, and his machine has 3 cannons that shoot fireballs of their own. He'll occasionally dish out a watermelon that you star spin, however, with each passing phase growing in intensity. It's a really fun fight, hurt most by its ice-based arena.
Gobblegut may not be hard now, but my nose would shoot out like Pinocchio if I said this guy didn't beat my ass 6 ways to Sunday as a kid. While nowhere near as hard as his blazing counterpart, by the time he's down to 3 red boils left in his body, you no longer have the luxury of camping by his body and have to tactically time your running away to lead you back to his body right as the orbs begin getting caught on the asteroid. I refuse to call this thing a planet. It's as big as maybe 30 Marios compressed into an orb. Anyways, as the first major boss, he's weirdly hard compared to everything else up until this point in the game and even everything after it to some degree. I respect that. Gobblegut isn't on some foo-foo shit. He wants to devour and kill. Hardcore.
Gobblegut, but harder and more visually satisfying. Battle Belt was a pretty bang-average Galaxy, but being rewarded with a secret boss fight from a hungry Luma was starbits well spent.
Don't be fooled by his early appearance. Gigalakatu is actually pretty cool. For starters, he has phase changes that actually change how the arena looks and make him significantly harder. Strangely few bosses in the game can lay claim to this feat. You also fight him using Yoshi, who is awesome as shit. I fucking love Yoshi, he's been my boy from day one. Mario Kart, Mario Party, doesn't matter, I fucking use Yoshi. You bet your ass I'm rocking with him being in Galaxy 2. You get to fire Spinies at him using Yoshi as a gun of sorts, which is also cool. Gigalakatu is a slept-on boss, he's really pretty solid.
Of the 3 Bowser fights, the initial encounter in his lava lair is the least mechanically expansive and in turn the lowest of the group. Right from the first note, Bowser has the most bombastic score in the game that suits him perfectly. The other components of the fight's sound design, like the whistling blows from the asteroids to the rise in the score's intensity when he punches the ground, are incredible. And that's also basically the fight. You evade anything orange and ground pound the golden balls when they get lifted in the air by Bowser's punches. Do it a bunch, and you beat him for good. Well, that is until he wakes up and escapes. Like Dr. Wily, the man can't seem to read the room and just give the fuck up. One day, he says. One day.
Another Bowser fight! Shocker! They are literally like the exact same thing. It's not a bad thing, don't get me wrong, but they logically just kind of fall in line in one cluster. Once again, you are pounding meteors into Bowser after his punches conveniently form them for you for your use. It's a neat spectacle and requires more brain power than some bosses thanks to the fire and laser shockwaves and all that, but they could have stood to innovate a bit more. No wonder Bowser Jr. always shows up Bowser as far as boss fights go. He's always got some new shit to throw at you and Bowser just bangs his head against the wall like an obstinate moron. You know what they say about the definition of insanity? The Albert Einstein definition, not the Far Cry 3 one.
As Alex said, this is simply an increase in intensity from the last time out. With the amount of rings coming from the asteroids and Bowser's punches, it can get pretty hectic due to the small size of the planet, but the game is generous with timing and they move at a slow pace. Bowser's Galaxy Generator serves its purpose as the finale, but lacks anything truly expansive to make it a satisfying conclusion to my preferred game of the Mario Galaxy duology.
As the list goes on, the fates of the bosses only become more and more grisly. Beaten to death? No. Squizzard gets fucking burned alive until he can't take it anymore and blows up. And honestly, that's still a mercy killing. He presumably was born, grew, and died in this one spot at the center of a quicksand pool. Imagine that. You just spend years with no contact of any sort and unable to move anything below your waist with no change of scenery. At that point, I can scarcely imagine why he tries to kill you. By all means, I'd be welcoming death, even if it's fiery torment at the hands of a fat Italian guy. But not Squizzard. He's fucking badass. His life sucks, but he refuses to die just for the sake of living. That's some gut shit right there. He chucks every spike ball, sucks in all the quicksand, pulls out fucking cannons, everything to get you out of here. This fight is all fun, jokes aside, but surprisingly chaotic for the generally tame pool of Mario bosses. That Daredevil star had me clenching my ass cheeks by the time the big guns were out. Respect.
The Womp King? Yeah. As one of the longest standing bosses in Mario history, making his first appearance all the way back in Mario 64, he finally gets his crown in HD graphical composition after 20 years on the throne. I wish they'd have kept his theme from Mario 64, however. This new score really doesn't help His Majesty in the music department. As with the original Womp King, he slams himself onto the ground, which you avoid by doing basically anything, and ground pound his bandaged backside. It's a simple, intuitive, but fun fight that was a great nod to the past by bringing back a memorable classic with new age design.
Nothing beats the satisfaction of destroying glass cockpits. Bowser Jr. really got this down to a science, and despite having nothing to do with Dig-a-Leg as far as anybody knows, I wouldn't be too surprised if he, had something to do with it. The name of the game is burrowing through the planetoid to violate his undercarriage with a planet-penetrating drill, eventually busting open his mechanical nutsack to reveal a power star. This fight is pretty simple and bare bones. You just jump on the enemies he spawns and avoid getting stepped on. Taking damage from his legs is almost impossible though, unless you're playing the game blackout drunk with someone alternating between tickling you and clubbing you in the head with a pipe at random intervals. As murder machines go, he's pretty fucking useless, but you know what? I don't even care. The drill is so fun to use here that it shoots to third place easily from sheer satisfaction value.
Our top 2 bosses are sponsored by Bowser Jr.'s R&D team. As is often the case, the ingenious bastard child of Bowser's self-made machines are the peak of boss battle spectacle. Mega Hammer is my favorite looking, but maybe the second easiest boss in the game behind the snowflake hoop shall not be named. As a little kid, this fight was absolutely hog-fucking wild, but with an old man's patience, as Yoshi you can simply spit out the bullet bills at each nipple one at a time in 2 cycles and beat the first phase in under a minute. With the second phase, the same rule follows, but Mega Hammer has 6 bullet bill shoots on his back that, besides the 2 closest to Mario, all miss without being activated. The last phase is pretty engaging though. He smashes the ground causing shockwaves, and when he does this, leaves his glass dome open to a clean strike. Breaking down the great Mega Hammer was a spectacle no doubt and deserves the number 2 ranking it received.
While certainly less badass looking than his bone-crushing glass tit robot from World 3, Bowser Jr. was all substance over style with this roving destroyer tank. You remember my fondness for beating on glass cockpits, yeah? Well, here you can ground pound like 50 feet down in the air if you feel like it. That's totally awesome. Like seriously, this fight takes everything I love about the series and rolls it into one package. Gratuitous amounts of long jumping, attacking glass cockpits, cool Bowser Jr. robots. It's the big fucking kahuna. And the fact that the Daredevil run is for the whole stage is awesome. Fighting this guy with no margin for error at the end of a difficult stage makes it about as tense as anything short of Grandmaster Galaxy. For gameplay, about as fun and hectic as Mario Galaxy could get without becoming bullshit levels of hard, the Boomsday device takes the Grand Star for best boss in the game.
Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed. Be on the lookout for our comprehensive Galaxy ranking coming out next Wednesday, and otherwise be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. That's all for now. Deuces.